Welcome to the webinar. This is Richie. So, having a great portfolio is just one of the best tricks to getting hired or promoted. The idea is simple. Hiring managers are paranoid that you're making up your credentials, but if you can show them some work you've done, then it proves that you have the skills that you say you do. Reduces the risk for the company to hire you, and that increases your chance of successfully getting hired. And so today you're going to see how to choose suitable projects for your portfolio and learn what makes a portfolio great. Our guest is Jelly Spratley, a Senior Data Science Instructor at Flatiron School. She's trained hundreds of data scientists and data analysts in Flatiron's boot camps. She's also taught data science at Durham Technical Community College, Podium Education, and Madecraft, as well as practicing data science at Helio Campus and Begu Consulting. Jelly also runs the Learning with Jelly educational YouTube channel, and she's a co-author of Tech Portfolio Mastery Data Analytics. So with that, please take it away, Jelly.
Thank you so much, Richie. Hello, everyone. I'm glad to have this conversation with you all today. So, we're going to go ahead and get started into the deck. All right. So, our agenda for today that we want to cover. And before we get into that agenda, Richie did an awesome job introducing me, but I'm just going to highlight some of the pivotal moments throughout my career journey. I am a former high school engineering teacher in Durham, North Carolina, taught computer science as well as electrical engineering. I do hold a master's of science in analytics from the home of the first Masters of Science and Analytics program, North Carolina State University. As Richie mentioned, I've worked as a consultant doing data analysis for pharmaceutical sales, as well as a client service manager for higher education universities, determining their resource allocation needs. I currently am a senior data science instructor in Flatiron School. A quick plug for Flatiron School. We do a great job in making sure that you have a portfolio once you graduate by taking you through individual and group projects. So, very excited to be talking about portfolios today. So, the agenda for today, we're going to talk about technical and professional skills that you should have within your portfolios. We're going to talk about some projects that you may be passionate about or some industry projects that you can also showcase in your portfolio. Talk about some platforms that you can host your portfolio on. There's tons of platforms. And then also how to communicate your project value to prospective employers. So, what exactly do employers look for out of candidates? They look for those demonstrated skills. Have you demonstrated the technical and professional skills to do the role at hand? A proof of competence, so something like a portfolio that shows that you're competent in the industry, and knowledge of industry standards. So, are there standard tools and technologies? Are there standard certifications that you must obtain in order to get some of these tech roles? So, let's talk about the demonstrated skills. So it's more than just the technical skills. And this slide is very busy because there's tons of technical skills. There's a new tool and technology that's being released every single day. There's a new large language model. There's a new generative AI model. There's a new package in Python. There's so many tools and technologies that you can learn. And the foundation of your technical skills more than likely exists of a programming language, some type of cloud platform, because right now everyone has big data. It used to be, hey, do you know big data? And big data was cool, but now almost any organization has big data and they need to be able to store that big data and create analysis and models off of big data. So, knowing some type of cloud platform, such as Amazon Web Services, Azure, Snowflake, Google Cloud, etc., data processing skills, extract, transform, and load, something very, very sought after still. So that's why SQL is so important. Big data technologies such as PySpark, data visualization tools, Tableau, large language models, the list goes on and on and on about technical skills. However, it's more than just the technical skills because now with the rise of generative AI, whether it's Copilot, whether it is using just your chat GPT, you can get some good insights of technical skills. But it's those professional skills that really sets you apart. So those professional skills that you see highlighted on the right hand side of the screen is very, very, very important. Do you have the business and domain knowledge? Do you understand ethical use of acquiring data, ethical use of models, data governance, compliance, things of that nature? Can you tell an impactful story so that your stakeholders can see the value through storytelling? Do you also have data literacy? Do you have this emotional intelligence? And I've heard this some years ago, and I love this saying: your IQ will get you hired, but your EQ will get you fired. Okay, so that emotional intelligence of empathy, can you work well with people? Can you read the room? All of that is very important. Do you have this creative and critical thinking? So it's not just putting any prompt into chat gpt, but can you think of creative prompts to put in there? Can you think of how to leverage creativity in your projects? Can you solve problems? Are you a great communicator? Can you network? And so much more. So it's more than just the technical skills, and you can highlight both technical and professional skills within your portfolio. So your portfolio should demonstrate both of these skill groups, but how can you actually go about doing that? So, one way is to start with something that you're passionate about, a passionate project, because if you like it, you're going to want to talk about it. I know in my personal conversations and people who know me, I love Disney World. So anything about Disney, I'm going to want to talk about it. I can talk about it all day. So finding a hobby or a niche or a day-to-day activity that you're really passionate about and marrying data with that will develop those professional skills. It will showcase those professional skills, and it will showcase that passion through interviews. So, a passionate project can check off more skills than you think, and highlighted in the orange color is some of those skills. So, your project can have a programming language. Your project can do some data processing. So, you can clean it up, you can manipulate it, you can create new features. Your project can include some visualizations, whether it's through Python or some of these visualization platforms, but see how many of the professional skills that you can check off. If you do a project that you're passionate about, you're going to know it. So you're going to have that domain knowledge. You're going to be able to tell a story. You're going to be able to have some creative and critical thinking because you took a project that you were passionate about, whether it's working out, whether it's going to the grocery store, making really organized shopping lists, whether or not it's figuring out what to watch on TV, whatever you're passionate about will showcase through in a creative way. You can solve a problem and you're going to want to communicate about it. So you're going to have that great communication. So, what are some examples of these passionate projects that you may have? So, some hobbies that some of you may be interested in. This is not an exhaustive list. Almost any hobby that you have, it has data. Data is everywhere. So, what even if it's cleaning, if you're even streaming video games on Twitch, you have user data of how they're interacting with your live streams. There's almost any hobby project can be married with data. So, an example here is maybe workout analysis. So, if it's a goal of yours, I know we're far from January 1st with our bucket list or our things that we want to achieve before the end of the year, but maybe you can analyze your workout data across time. Okay, look at the number of steps that you make across time. Look at the types of workouts that you do and visualize that in a dashboard. Maybe you have a green thumb and you love to garden. So maybe doing an analytics dashboard for some of the gardening activities could be an example of a hobby project. Maybe you are love to travel. I know that I love to travel, so looking up travel itineraries and building something from as a travel destination recommendation system where you can get data from travel sites by accessing their APIs, whether it's Expedia, Kayak, Airbnb, and so forth. Maybe you love music. So you can do a music playlist analyzer or analyze your user listening data from whatever platform that you use. Maybe you love sports And you can analyze training strategies for peak performance of any individual player on a field. I know most major sports, whether it's soccer, baseball, basketball, football, have data right on their sites. You can go to NFL.com, NBA.com, wherever it may be, and just pull off data and really look at your favorite sports players. If you're a foodie, you can analyze restaurant reviews and create a recipe recommendation system from somewhere like Yelp or anywhere of that nature. So those are examples of hobbies, and that's kind of to get you started to understand that data is everywhere. So you can get started with your own hobby. Okay. But what are some examples of actual industry projects that you may want to add to your portfolio? So there's tons of different industry projects, and there's going to be a resource of a list of these industry projects that I made in an ebook that Reese will share in the chat momentarily before this webinar is over. But environmental. So maybe you're really passionate about the environment. Can you do a time series model on pollution forecasting? Can you do an image recognition model on where deforestation is happening? Where are the habitats that are still existing so we can take care of our animals? Maybe you're passionate about healthcare and you can do image recognition of tumors or certain diseases that may interest you. Maybe you're interested in finance and you want to do things like credit loan approval projects or fraudulent transaction predictions to predict credit card fraud or anything of that nature. Maybe you're into social media and that's an industry that you want to pivot in. So everyone now is on social media. So user engagement analysis, who is actually engaging with your post, whether it's a like, whether it's a share, whatever the case may be. Maybe you are passionate about education like me. So, looking at things like who is enrolling in certain online courses, do hybrid courses perform better than on campus courses, and how can we forecast enrollment offerings? And maybe you're into sports, as we saw, it's also a hobby project. So things like sports betting is very popular nowadays, and things such as trying to do player performance, what's the right angle to hit a pitch, so forth and so forth. So those are some industry and passionate projects, right? To kind of get your brain going on what actually can I do? What actually has data and how can I actually take that data and turn it into a project? But where can I actually host these projects? So there's multiple platforms that you can use, and this is a data camp webinar, and this is no means solicited by DataCamp at all, but I love DataCamp. I've been using DataCamp since 2018 when I started my master's program. And DataCamp does have a nice portfolio feature in the beta form now where you can create your own portfolio within DataCamp. And it will have all of the certifications that you've gained, as well as your tools and technologies listed, and you can add to it. Outside of DataCamp, GitHub is a very popular site. So my more technical projects that deal with models, deals with recommendations, data processing, I might host on GitHub. There's also a new site out that I've been seeing on my timeline, and shout out to the creator of datascienceportfolio.io. But this is a free website where you can actually showcase your project. So it's very specific to technical projects versus something like a Wix. So it's very easy to use. In any project that you do, you can host on that site. Keep in mind that projects don't have to be just a coding project. You can do a podcast, you can do a blog, you can do a TikTok reel. Okay, so portfolios can exist in various forms. So, Medium is a great platform when you want to do blogs, and I'll show you one of my blogs more momentarily, as well as Tableau Public. So if you're interested in data visualization, Tableau Public is also a free resource where you can get that dashboard up and going and tell a story. And there's tons of others. There's Canva, there's Wix, there's YouTube, there's even Spotify if you want to do a podcast. So think outside of the box. There's no such thing as you need to have a traditional GitHub with 10, 12 projects that has a README and takes you through a Jupyter notebook. Though that is great, And you should have some type of project that demonstrates your coding skills if that is necessary for you to land a career. But think about doing things such as podcasts or blogs or doing something more artistic, and so forth. So, regardless of the portfolio platform that you use or the type of project that you decide on, make sure that you include these things in your portfolio. You state every project's overview and the goal. So, what was the goal of this project? I analyze my steps over time so that I can increase my endurance so that I can run a 10K. And this has taught me a lot about trends. Whatever the project goal and overview is, make sure that you state that for every project. State how the project can be used in the real world. So, even if you do a project based off of a hobby, how can you translate this project into a business problem, into a company that would see that your project could be beneficial for them to bring them revenue? So, if you did a hobby project of how much music you listen to across time to figure out, um, engagement. So you love social media. So you're posting every song that you're listening to, and you want to see who engages or reshares your posts. That could help a business because they're going to be interested in who's engaging with their product or who is engaging with their service. So take anything that you do and try to think about what is the real world benefit behind it. Make sure that you tell a story. So, what story are you trying to convey through this project? And sometimes it can be easier if you're dealing a dashboard, but tell a story. Why should they care? Why were you passionate about this project? Be able to quantify your results in some shape, form, or fashion. Okay. I was able to analyze this data, and I analyzed the data across 6 months where I averaged 9,000 steps a day and was able to finish third in my 10K. I was able to do a model that had 90% precision, or I was able to do a model that had 10% accuracy. Whatever the result was, try to add a number to it because these are data roles. So if you can quantify your project, you're better off in interviews. And make sure that you share what you've learned from your project. So don't just do a project and just leave it there. What did you learn from actually doing the project? Whether it was a professional skill. I learned that, hey, project management is key. So enhancing project management skills is great. I've learned that in SQL, I shouldn't do a subquery inside another subquery inside another subquery. I can just do a common table expression. Whatever your learning was, share that learning and also recommendations from your analysis. But Jelly, show me some of your examples. And these are just some examples. Okay. And so in this case, this is one of my more recent projects that I did for a hackathon for NASA. And this was about 2 weeks ago that I had Daniel Berdino and Dr. Yuan Otisa work alongside me with this. But pretty much, I needed to state the business problem. So if you see in this red box, and that QR code will take you right to the GitHub repo, you see that the goal here was to connect data systems within the criminal justice system to figure out court efficiency for research purposes. And they wanted to focus on, based off of court cases in the United States, what court cases involve government and what court cases involve non-government entities. And if it involved government entities, they wanted to look at those. Should they reallocate resources to prisons? Are there certain cities that they need to reallocate resources to? So, this was more of how we can streamline some of our economic resources within the judicial system. And this was using a certain Hugging Face model. Before the Hugging Face model, it utilized standard decision models from machine learning. And so, what did I learn? So, as we said, a project needs to have what was the project about? What did you learn? Were you able to quantify any results? So in this case, we were able to quantify our zero shot LLM model, which was roughly 60% accurate, where we were able to identify correctly government versus non government cases. But the main thing that we learned is that this generative AI model didn't perform as well as a standard machine learning model. Okay. So, what exactly did you learn? What can you recommend the business to do? Should all be inside of your project. So, this is a different example of a project that I just did for fun, and it was more for storytelling and a certain passion of mine. So, this is off of Tableau. And so for this case, this came from the IMDb movie data set. So you can go to imdb.com. They have free data there. .gov sites have free data. Driven Data has free data. Kaggle has free data. There's so much free data out here. Almost any site that you can think of will have some form of open data or at least an API that you can get the data from. But this came straight from the IMDb data source. And pretty much my passion was movies and as well as African American females that exist in movies, since I do identify as an African American female. And so the story here is that across 2 decades, these were the top 8 actresses. But out of these 2 decades, we only had one Best Picture winner. Now, could there be a discrepancy in the film industry about the recognition that Black actresses get versus other types of actors and actresses? Maybe. But this was just a side project that I was passionate about, watching movies, and I was able to turn it into a dashboard. And as always, that QR code up at the top will take you straight to that dashboard. Again, we don't just need to have a GitHub project with a README like my first example. We don't need to just have a dashboard. We can also do a blog. So in this case, this was a blog about detecting anomalies in cybersecurity and data science, and it also got 52 claps. But in this case, I'm learning cybersecurity as it currently is. I'm a student of cybersecurity, and I wanted to bridge the gap between these two fields. So I wrote about it, right? And I shared it. It got a lot of feedback and good recognition. And you can take a look at this blog with the QR code above as well. Okay. So what is my brand and what is one professional project that I'm very proud of? So, as an educator and wanting to educate people to land data careers, I was given the opportunity via Madecraft to work with Google as one of our clients and help Google create a Coursera course about advanced data analytics. So, I helped with some of their statistical readings as well as some of their machine learning projects to be launched on Coursera. So, that was also part of my portfolio. So we have a GitHub repo, we have a blog, we have a dashboard, we have a professional course that I've worked on, we have YouTube playlists on Learning with Jelly. So there's plenty, many shape, forms, and fashion that you can do to create your own portfolio. So now, how can I talk about my project? So I've decided on my project, whether it's a project based off of a hobby, whether it's a project for an industry that I want to go into. So now, since I have these projects, how can I actually discuss this with employers? And this is a classic principle that I actually like. So, why reinvent the wheel if something is working? And it's called the XYZ principle, where X stands for experience. So, what was the project about and your specific contributions? So, if you're working in a group project, make sure that you highlight your specific contributions. And what are the metrics about your project results? So, was your project 60% accurate? Was your project speeding up time to production time? Was your project able to get more customer feedback? Whatever your project did, try to quantify that. The Y stands for your skills. So, what tools, technologies, or programming languages did you use? Did you use Python? In my previous example with the dashboard, I used Tableau. Okay. Did you use SQL? What were the tools and technologies that you use? And what professional skills did it also help you develop? Okay. And the Z stands for zeal. It's the passion. Okay. I have interviewed several people, and it wasn't necessarily the how many projects they've done, it was their passion about what they have done that really showcased in the interview. So why did you choose this project? Are you passionate about data ethics like myself? Are you passionate about ed tech like myself? Are you passionate about sports? Are you passionate about gardening? Are you passionate about healthcare? Are you passionate about the environment? Really showcase that passion through interviews. So, this is an example of that XYZ principle. So the experience in this is that we implemented classification models such as logistic regression decision trees to predict engagement level of social media posts. So how often are people actually engaging with the social media posts? Low engagement, medium engagement, high engagement. And this model was able to give us 90% accuracy, and we utilize a Kaggle data set to optimize content strategy for a tech company. So they got the data set from Kaggle. They were able to run some classification models. Their classification model was 90% accurate. And this would be great if we're trying to launch a product for any company who has products, right? The skills that were developed, so they list some packages here. So NumPy, Pandas, sklearn, and Seaborn were used for data manipulation, exploratory data analysis, best known as EDA, and for model creation. And they learned about strategic planning and marketing strategies to better understand the data. So those were some professional skills. They learned how to do strategic planning. They learned project management and what marketing strategies exist. In the zeal, they are enthusiastic about leveraging data analytics to unlock the potential of social media and content marketing because they themselves have a passionate for social media engagement. So this is an example that I kind of just prompted in Chat GPT. So I didn't take this from a real person, but I love this example of giving your experience, showcasing your skills, and then showing that passion for that project that you just created. Okay, I get this. But Jelly, how do I get started? Maybe I'm starting from scratch, or maybe I've been in the industry for 20 years and I'm under an NDA and I can't necessarily share the industry projects that I have done. So I have to start creating my own project. So, how do I actually get started? So, some basic steps of getting started and creating that portfolio: research. What data role do you actually want to go into? I talk to people all the time and they're like, I don't know. Data roles pay a lot of money, but you need research. You need to get the data, right? That is one step. That should be your first project. Get the data of the various types of roles. What is the demand for those roles? What is the median salary for those roles? What is the flexibility for those roles? How do those roles show up in different industries, whether it's finance, healthcare, etc.? So our BI analysts, data scientists, AI architects, ML engineers, ML ops, whatever the role is, do your research. Once you research that role and you think that role is a fit for you can determine your education path. So for some of you, that could be self-study. If you're really disciplined, you could do self-study. You could go on YouTube. You can look at some free resources about how to become a data analyst, how to become a data scientist, and keep yourself on a schedule. For others, that may be e-courses. There's tons of e-course platforms on here. Of course, DataCamp has a lot of courses on their site, but Udemy, Coursera, things of that nature. Maybe boot camp is an option for you. I currently do work at a boot camp, or maybe a master's degree is a good option for you. And that's the route that I took, was a master's degree. So once you figure out your education path, start with a technical tool you're most comfortable with or is universal. Okay. So a lot of people who are starting in data science or data analytics are comfortable with Excel. And for a lot of companies, especially small to medium sized businesses, Excel is not going away. You can even do statistical testing in Excel. You can do machine learning in Excel. I currently do not use Excel, but if Excel is what you are most comfortable with, start analyzing your data in Excel. SQL will always be a universal language, in my opinion. Okay. Data analysts need it, data scientists need it, data engineers need it, ML engineers need it. SQL and NoSQL nowadays are universal languages, so you can always start there. And of course, if you're looking for more of a visualization dashboarding role, dashboarding tools such as Tableau, Power BI, Looker, those are also tools. So once you start with your technical tools, share your learnings. I don't care if your learning is, I created this Python program that said hello world. We all had to start from somewhere. Share it out because now you're creating your online brand. Okay. So share what you have learned. You can share it through posts on LinkedIn's. You can share it through a TikTok reel. You can share it through virtual networking. You can share it through groups, whether it's meetup.com groups, whether it's LinkedIn groups, whether it's Facebook groups. Just share what you're learning. Okay. You have to start from somewhere and create that portfolio from your learnings. So create those projects, create those blogs, create those podcasts. But the most important step is be open to feedback at every step. I still do projects till this day or help others with their projects. And I give feedback and I'm also accepting of it. And the quicker you share out your portfolio and your projects, the quicker you can get this feedback. Now, not all the feedback, you can take action, right? But it's always great to be open for feedback and say thank you for the feedback. And somewhere in here, if there is a certification that you feel is necessary to land your role, right? Whether it's a certain cloud services certification that can also help you stand out. But these are the basics. We start with research. We start with getting the data ourselves because we want to get into a data role. And then we follow these steps. So, in summary, portfolios should demonstrate both those technical and professional skills. Don't sleep on the skills such as emotional intelligence, creative thinking, problem solving, data storytelling, data literacy. All of these are great professional skills that your portfolio should demonstrate. If you are just getting started, start with a passionate project. Or even if you've been in the industry, start with a project that you're passionate about. It can get you even that much more motivated to stay in the industry. So whether it's gardening, sports, working out, cooking, whatever it may be, start with a passionate project. There are multiple platforms out here to host your work. Do your research. If you really want to do dashboards, do your Tableau, do your Power BI, do your Looker. If you really want to do machine learning models and you want to share your code, do datascienceportfolio.io, do GitHub. If you really want to do blogs, start with Medium. If you want to do podcasts or videos, do YouTube, do Spotify. So you get the point. The platforms are based off of what type of portfolio you can create, and you can create one or more. Be able to add project goals and real world implications to each one of your project. Why should the business care that you're interviewing for? And use XYZ to talk about your projects to prospective employers. Talk about your experience, talk about your skills, and then talk about your zeal. And with that, I want to thank you all for listening. Here are some QR codes for some important links with my LinkedIn. I also started a Facebook group this week to kind of teach everybody about tech careers. There's also some data merch that I started a few weeks ago. And so I just have on this shirt, just trying to function, which is awesome, and my YouTube. And there we have it.
All right, thank you, Jelly. That was great. I'd say I really like that the XYZ thing for showing off, like how do you actually talk about your project. So we're going to go to audience questions in a moment. So for everyone in the audience, if you do have questions for Jelly, please do write them in the chat. In the meantime, I've got a question for you. I'm curious as to how much you have to tailor your projects towards specific job applications. Like, do you want a project that just like ticks off boxes on a specific job application, or should you go more general?
I would recommend honestly going more general but industry specific, if that makes sense. So I see a lot of students who come in and they're saying, I'm open to any industry, or people who are new to the field. I don't care if it's healthcare, finance, retail, right? And so having a project that can really showcase your passion, I think that passion will resonate in any interview, regardless of the actual job description at hand. Now, if you do know an industry that you're passionate about and you want a job in finance, go and do those finance projects. If there's a certain industry that's very niche, in my case, it was pharmaceuticals. So we utilize a different tool such as SAS. I did a project that was around SAS because that tool was so niche. But most of the time, these open source tools can cross any industry. So really just start with something you're passionate about and go from there.
Okay, that seems good. So I can certainly imagine how like finance people tend to be like, yeah, you must know finance in order to get a job in this area. And some industries they're a bit more picky about like you must have some domain knowledge. So you probably want to go industry specific there.
Yeah.
All right. So my other question is, how big should your project be? Is this going to be like an analysis you can read in 5 minutes? Are we talking PhD thesis length? Like how deep do you
No
need to go?
PhD PhD thesis length, because there's academic data science and applied data science, right? If you know that you want to get a role that is research intensive, you will need that education underneath it, right? You would need that master's, that PhD. But a lot of people transitioning into data want the applied data scientist. So we don't need to write a whole bunch of white papers, right? So I would say start small just so you can get started. So take a data set from Kaggle, driven data, and I think there's what 30, 48, whatever it is, or a .gov site, and start small. And then you can scale it out by doing the modeling techniques. Okay. So even if you have 1 week or 3 months, you can do a project. Okay. That's what I would recommend for that. But no need to write a whole bunch of theses. And also you can start with a group. I found that easier, Richie. I think when I first started learning, I had a great team in my master's program and we did small 3 week projects and we just started there. And that portfolio was great to give me my first job in data.
Okay, I like the idea of starting small, and certainly, like when I've been hiring people, just looking at a portfolio, it's like the whole reason I'm looking at a portfolio is because I want to save myself time, like finding out who's a decent candidate or not. So it's going to be less than 5 minutes reading through some of these projects.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
You
a
need
really
that
long
60
project, you're
second
probably wasting
elevator
time.
pitch for every project, right? Like they say
Definitely.
60 seconds to sell yourself, but also 60 seconds to tell someone what you did in your project. So you don't want to give them like a long 50-page thesis to read. You should be able to summarize up that project in about 60 seconds.
Nice. All right, let's take a look at some of the questions from the audience. Actually, before we go to that, one thing I will say, because since you mentioned Medium, if anyone is interested in doing some writing about data science and wants to kind of build up their portfolio, build up their credibility at the same time, DataCamp does need tutorial writers. So I think there is a link in the resources page to our application if you want to apply to be a DataCamp tutorial writer. Oh, and I see Reese just posted the link in the chat. So if you want to write for DataCamp, then please do click on the link and apply there. All right. So this first question comes from Jonathan. So Jonathan says, how important is having an advanced degree like a master's or PhD if you want to break into data science?
So this is going to put me in between a semi rock and hard place. So I want to say that these are my opinions and my expression because I do have a master's, but then I currently work at a boot camp, right? So I would say I see my boot camp graduates land roles all the time. So a master's degree is not necessary. Okay. The reason why I went to a master's program is because that suited my schedule at the time as far as accountability. I wanted to do 50 hours a week in 10 months and get out. And that helped me with accountability. I would say if you are doing self study, make sure that you are getting feedback. One thing that master's programs, boot camps, and more formalized education gives you is that immediate feedback of your work. Whether it's group feedback, whether it's a mentor feedback, whether it's a teacher feedback. So, if those masters aren't necessary, if you are going to do self-study, get those projects out in front of others so that you can get feedback, so that you know that you're actually implementing the technical skills appropriately.
That's great advice. I have to say, from my own point of view as well, yeah, I have a master's degree, and that has helped me at the start of my career. But you can get a long way with self-study, and then DataCamp has professional certification as well. That's going to get you a good step. But just to add to what Jelly said, yeah, work with a group so there's someone telling you whether or not your code sucks, because your code will suck for a long time, at least if you're anything
It
like
will.
me. So, so have that sort of social mechanism in place as well. All right, next question comes from Christiane, saying, what are the most common mistakes to avoid when creating a data portfolio?
The communication. You're not communicating what you actually did in the project. Some people are like, hey, look at my code. And it's a Jupyter notebook. And it's all like, okay, why did you do the project? How would this project benefit a business? We kind of skip the project storytelling piece of it and we just start doing things, right? So I would say, really think about the business problem and the stakeholder of your project before you even start coding, right? How can this project benefit a real world client? Okay. And how can I actually communicate the benefits of this project? Or am I just doing this project just to do it? And like I said, even your hobbies can have benefits. So I would avoid that. In group projects, I see people not understanding the project from start to finish because they weren't involved in a particular piece of the group project. So I would say, if you're working on a group project, be transparent about your contributions. I personally was responsible for version control. So I did the GitHub, I was able to do the branches, and any of the technical models, though I can speak to them, I might not have that in depth knowledge. So be transparent of the skills that you've actually gained from the project. Don't make it up. Okay. So those would be some common mistakes that I would say to avoid. And also waiting too late to put your project out there. Okay. Like I said, even if you're learning pandas, which is a Python package where you can just look at the data, you can get the dot head and you can get the mean, median, and mode, share it because it will help you keep motivated because you can always look back on your growth.
Yeah, I do think that's an excellent point about not lying during the interview about what skills you have. It's not going to turn out well. Like, even if you get the job, then you're getting a fan out pretty quickly. And at this point, you probably can get AI to generate a reasonable, like, simple data analysis project for you. But if you don't know anything about it, you don't know how it works, then that's not really of any use to you whatsoever. Since you mentioned storytelling, I have another question for you on this. So, I mean, we talk a lot about storytelling in these webinars and how you tailor your story for different audiences. So, is the audience for your project, are you thinking, is that going to be someone in human resources who's hiring you? Is it going to be like a technical hiring manager? Or is it just going to be like the audience for that particular project? So, if you're doing a gardening project, is it going to be other gardeners? Who
Yeah.
should you tailor the language towards?
So I would say it will help to have different versions of your story. So if I'm in the HR interview and I did something really technical, like a Gliner Spacey LLM model for Hugging Face, I'm not going to say all of that. I'm going to say, hey, I use a foundational generative AI model because right now people know what generative AI is to help me generate new text data about reviews for Airbnb because I wanted to see, since I want to buy Airbnb property, which property I should invest in. And they're like, oh, that sounds interesting. What did you find out? Oh, I found out having this lakefront property in Maine would give me the best reviews, whatever that may be. I just pulled that out the top of my hat. But that's going to be more for my human resources. I'm going to tell them more of a common person story, like if I was explaining to my mother. No offense to my mother, but she's not a data scientist. So I would explain it that way. Now, when it goes into the technical round of interviews, then I can get into that. Okay. Well, I started with these pre-processing steps where I scaled my data this way. I handled my categorical variables this way. I did a train test split to validate my model. Upon implementing the model, I was able to use a precision metric of 85% because I was focused on false positives. I'm going to get into all that technical minutia there, right? So have different versions of your project. And if you have a very clear cut project overview and a business overview that anyone can understand available at your fingertips, you should be able to tailor that project to any audience that you encounter.
I like that. So just explaining the same thing in different ways, just for different audiences, depending on how technical they are. All
Yeah.
right, excellent. So this next is more of a request than a question here from Fatima saying, can you share some places where we can get data to build up projects? Now, I know you talked a bit about some of the sources of data like Kaggle and so forth. One thing I will say, we did a webinar recently on exactly this point, was like, where can you get data for your portfolios? It's in the resources. I believe Reese can share a link, has just shared a link in the chat, so please do check that out if you want to know where to get your data sets. Next question from Daniel. So Daniel says, what tool do you use to make these dashboards?
So I am a Tableau public person. I know Power BI is out there. It all to me, and Richie, you can probably comment because you've been in the industry. It really doesn't matter what tool it is as long as it's a visualization tool. Most companies will have a Microsoft stack. Some companies will have an Amazon stack. You can't please them both, but they know that if you know either or, you should be able to do dashboarding. And that's the skill that you want to showcase. So Tableau Public is free. You can go on tableau.com. They have free trainings as well. DataCamp also has a whole Tableau course that I also admire that you can also take to learn Tableau. But that particular example was done in Tableau Public.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you're interested in learning about Tableau or Power BI, then DataCamp does have a whole series of courses that are going to take you through to the official Microsoft or Tableau certifications. But yeah, as long as you know one of these platforms, that's going to stand you in good stead for most business intelligence jobs. And yeah, those two are the most popular platforms. There's also Looker, and actually there's dozens of these different things.
Yeah.
ClickSense is another one. So yeah, pick one of the most popular ones and just make sure you're good at it.
Exactly.
And hopefully you can transferable. So I come from an R background, so if I want to build a dashboard, I tend to use Shiny, which is the R-based tool, but like no one uses that anymore. So,
and I actually use Shiny as my first one, believe it or not. And now I'm far away from R. I'm a Python person now. So
yeah. Okay. So yeah, learn one business intelligence tool. Doesn't really matter too much which one it is. So next question comes from Toby. So Toby says, that was awesome. Where is it you generated those claps for your portfolio projects? Was that, I can't remember what a clap is.
So on Medium, people can clap your blog. So those are actually other people who have read it. I can't actually clap my own blog, even though I should give myself some claps. But to answer your question, when you do a blog on Medium, that's how people can engage with your Medium blog. So just like a like on Facebook, people can give you claps for your blog post.
Oh yes, having some kind of like reviewing system where people can go, hey,
exactly.
That's
exactly.
nice. And then you get all like your friends and family to be, can you just give me
yeah, I needed to get 52 of them, but honestly, they probably wouldn't have known anomaly detection in cybersecurity and data science to even clap it. So
excellent. All right. So this next one comes from Charity. So Charity says, greetings from Kenya. Kindly share some portfolios. So you showed some of your examples. One thing I'll say is, if you want to see some more examples of good portfolios, DataCamp has a portfolio leaderboard where you can see the top portfolios from all of our learners, and that's going to give you some inspiration for things you can create. So I think, yeah, Reese is sharing that in the chat, so please do take a look at that. And Jelly, if you, I don't know whether you want to add something there.
Look at that leaderboard. It's awesome. And also on my LinkedIn, if you look at the features section on the top of my profile, you'll be able to see when I post projects and things of that nature as well.
Excellent. Actually, just going back to that previous point about business intelligence stuff and building a dashboard, do you have any advice on like what people need to know about like data visualization, like good data visualization, or like dashboard design or things like that? Because that seems like a more general skill.
Yeah, that is a general skill. And I, like I said, I'm going to plug DataCamp again, but yes, you should know things like color theory, right? What colors you should put on your dashboards. You should know what a container is and how to actually lay the dashboard out. But honestly, since I am a Tableau person, Tableau has free training about all of that. There's also Tableau Tim on YouTube, and some of you guys might already follow him. I love Tableau Tim to get you started with actually knowing some general principles of design of dashboards. That is important.
Okay, I didn't know about Tableau Tim. I think I'll have to try and recruit him to a webinar.
He has an learning course as well. Tableau Tim is amazing.
All right. Excellent. Okay. Next question comes from Jade. So, do you have any thoughts on Microsoft Fabric? I'm currently studying for the Fabric Engineer certification, but haven't seen much mention in the job
Ooh,
postings.
I actually don't. I'm not too familiar with Microsoft Fabric. Are you, Richie?
Not especially. So, I'm going to tell you about the idea of a data fabric. So, the idea with a data fabric is just that all your data in a particularly in a bigger organization, tends to get stuck next to different applications, different teams own different bits of things, and you want some way for all these different teams to be able to access each other's data. So each team is responsible for their own data, and then they just say, hey, this is the data. They document what data is available for other teams to use. I think Microsoft Fabric's kind of like a software implementation of this. So it's a way for being able to discover data around large organizations. I think that's right.
That's right. That's very interesting. It reminds me a lot about data pipelines and all of that, right? So I have no previous work or knowledge of Microsoft Fabric, but hey, Richie, you taught us something.
Okay, yeah. So Microsoft Fabric is very new, which is probably why it's not showing up in job adverts. Usually, stuff only shows up in job adverts when they say, "Okay, you need like 2 years of experience in this." If a tool's less than 2 years old, like no one posts job adverts for it, maybe you'll find enough people. So it's probably a useful skill to have. It's fairly cutting edge. So yeah, if you want to get involved in data governance, and that is like one of the growing data roles, yeah, go for it. No
Yeah.
one's going to complain if you have a certification about something. Okay, so next question from the mysteriously named PQR. Can I use could I use as a beginning portfolio data camp project? Yes, is the
Yes,
short
yes,
answer.
of course. All right. I know there's tons of data camp tracks, and I've done so many data camp courses. Start with that. They have like great workspaces. They even have an AI assistant. And even though I've been in the industry for however many years, I still use an AI assistant if I get super stuck, right? But yes, start with data camp projects, and they have a built-in portfolio integration, and showcase those and share them online on all of your platforms. Share it with your networks. Don't do your projects in secret. Let people know what you are doing so you can get that feedback.
Yeah, one thing I'd add to that, if you want to convert a data camp project into something for your portfolio, data camp projects, they're quite linear. They're designed to test that you know the stuff that you learned in courses. You're going to want to make this a little bit more freeform, customize it yourself. So take the data set that was in the data camp project and then answer some new questions about it. You're also going to want to change the text. So Jelly mentioned storytelling. So you're going to change the text so it's appropriate for like talking about, hey, these are the business problems we're trying to solve, and this is why I care about it, and all this kind of stuff. So get those X, Y, Z points in there, and just rewrite the text, answer a few new questions, and that's probably going to be good enough for a starting point for your project, for your portfolio. All right. Next question comes from Guerrero saying, I'm in a business intelligence and analytics program. Are academic projects useful to add?
Yeah. I think the only real project that I had getting my master's was one that I did as an academic project. It was for a client, so you can think of it as a co-op or internship throughout. But pretty much, it was a project doing disease, no, rehab prediction, to predict when people would show up to rehab so we can intervene so they wouldn't pass away from a drug overdose. So it was real impactful. But that was the only project that I had that I did within my master's program on a team, and that was able to give me my first data role. So I don't think it really matters the type of project, academic, industry, as long as it doesn't have an NDA attached to it. So please do not share out information you're not allowed to, but any type of project, add that to your portfolio.
Yeah, certainly sharing like personal health data about people, probably bad form for public portfolio. You're going to have to anonymize that in some way, use some synthetic data if you want to show people
Yes,
what's in
or
that.
write about it, right? And in a high level way.
Yes. But otherwise, yeah, I think academic projects go down very well, especially if it's like if there's a university project and you're getting some paper published in a journal, that goes down very, very well as part of the portfolio.
It does.
All right, I think we've got time for one more question. So this question comes from Carlos. So Carlos says, how much do you use ChatGPT when coding your projects?
I would say enough. It's a good tool as a coding assistant. I would say be careful with it, right? So I'm knowledgeable about code enough to know when ChatGPT is giving me a code that may lead to unexpected results. So for instance, if I wanted to randomize my data and it all of a sudden randomized the age column and gave everybody different ages, that's not what I wanted it to do, right? So I would say if to brainstorm, hey, how can I create a feature based off of these two features in Python? Or how can I create a word cloud in Python? It can give you a great starting point, but just be mindful that you always need to check the output of your code to make sure that it's giving you the expected results. So I would say I utilize it some if I'm stuck or I can't think of a new method or I need to troubleshoot a function that I have defined, but I'm very specific with ChatGPT. I'm not just giving it general prompts. Richie, what are your ideas?
Yeah, so I'm a big fan of AI assisted coding. So if you use DataCamp Data Lab, that's our hosted Jupyter Notebook platform, you get AI assistants built in and you are encouraged to use AI to help you. In the case of projects for a portfolio, I think increasingly employers are going to start asking, have you used AI to help create this? And it's probably going to go down better if you say, actually, I created this all myself, because then, the whole point is you're showing off your skills, not the AI skills. So for portfolio stuff, I would say try and avoid using AI, try and do it yourself. It's just a slightly odd situation that like the whole point of portfolio is showing off your own skills. If you do use AI, then you need to make sure that you actually understand absolutely everything in there, because you don't want to be asked a question about your own project in your portfolio and not know the answer because AI did that.
AI generated the whole thing. Exactly. Yeah. I normally use it for troubleshooting, right? Or if I'm too, I wouldn't say lazy to put in the help function to look up the documentation. I'm like, hey, can you just shoot out this documentation of this model for me? But yes, still troubleshoot, look at documentation, know how the model works, know what's going on the back end. Don't just let generative AI generate a project from you from start to finish.
Absolutely. All right, brilliant. Before everyone dashes off, 3 upcoming sessions that are going to be very exciting for anyone who's sort of trying to get a job. So on Thursday, we've got a session on how to pass the Alteryx certification. So Alteryx has a series of certifications. So Alteryx is very focused on data processing, data manipulation, so the step before of analytics before you get to business intelligence. So that's going to be a great session on Thursday. And then next week, we've got a 2-part session on using Data Lab, and you get to see how to create stuff where you're writing the code yourself with a bit of AI assistance, or just doing everything in AI. So various levels of AI boosts there. Definitely worthwhile learning about these kind of new data analytics workflows. There's a QR code link at the top left if you want to go and register for those. Brilliant. All right. With that, thank you so much, Jelly. That was a really informative session and so many great ideas for projects. I now want to do a gardening project, even though I've got a yard with 1 plant in it. Very small data.
I kill succulents, unfortunately. So not for me. Thank you, everyone.
Nice. Okay, thank you, Reese, for moderating. Thank you to everyone who asked a question. Lots of great questions today. This is a really fun session. And thank you to everyone who showed up. I hope to see you all again on Thursday.